All right, Dr. Brett Brimhall. I'm excited to spend a little time with you talking about this stress cycle. No matter who comes into my office, it seems like every person I have the same conversation with, and I hope that you can share this with many of your loved ones. When your body goes through a stress cycle, there's certain things that happen, and this is so common. They've actually made a syndrome called the general adaptive syndrome. Your body's designed to go through stress. That's what happens. If it stays in long-term stress, that's where the problem becomes. So I want to kind of talk about where maybe and try to see yourself in this process. Where are you at? Because if your body's in it, we're designed to have stress. Like it's normal when you go through stress cycles, whether that's lifting weights or whether that's cold temperatures or whether that's emotional stress. Your body's designed to adapt to it. Now, if that stays in a cycle long term, it becomes problematic. So there's a researcher named Hans Selye that coined this term stress, and he called it the general adaptive syndrome. This is the phase your body goes through when you go through a stress cycle. So anytime you go through a stress cycle, there's what's called the alarm phase, resistance phase, and exhaustion phase. Now, what that looks like is this. Let's just say you're going through, wake up in the morning and you wake up later than you should. That's your first stress cycle. So now, normally you're going to go that stress, will go up, then alarm, and you'll go back to this resting state, which is where you'll feel calm and relaxed. One of the common questions I'll ask people all the time is, when was the last time you felt calm and relaxed? And then I also ask, how often do you feel that way? When your body's in a calm or relaxed state, in chiropractic we call that a state of ease, is where your body's in a healing state. So your body's designed to go through this alarm stage and back to this normal resting state. Now, if you're like most people in this world, they might have multiple stressors. You might have, children, you might have jobs, you might have taxes, you might have, relationship stresses. And this happens, so your body goes through one stress after another stress, and pretty soon you're at this, what they call the resistance phase, is where you're in this constant state of what they call fight, flight, or freeze. And when you're there, your body can only sustain that so long. And what will happen, this resistant phase, depending on the individual and how healthy they are, what the reserves look like, they can be able to handle that stress for longer periods of time. Now, what will eventually happen, your ability to handle that level of stress eventually depletes, and we start going through this exhaustion phase. Now, what does this feel like for people? There's a Jessie Lynn Hanley wrote a book called Tired of Being Tired, and she talked about phases of adrenal exhaustion, and she talked about what's called driven, dragging, hitting the wall, burnt out, and exhausted. I like to think of the driven phase is mostly this phase, and you'll see some of this, and then you start dragging when you get into here. What you'll notice is when you're already in this exhaustion phase, your body is already in a compensation pattern. What that means is just like with any of us, like if you have more bills than you have money to pay them, it starts feeling very stressful. And when it stays at that long term, pretty soon you have to decide what bills you're going to pay or which bills you're not going to pay. That same thing happens in the body. So as your body goes through this phase, goes back to exhaustion, you'll feel like you're driven, dragging, hitting the wall, burnt out, exhausted. Unfortunately, by the time we start doing something about this, we're in one of these phases where we're either driven, or should be dragging, hitting the wall, or burnt out, exhausted. Most of the time it's this hitting the wall, burnt out, exhausted when people come in to see me. If you think of this as a reserve in your bank account or in your gas tank, you want to be in a place where you feel driven most of the time. And this is physically and emotionally as well. Now, so as you're going through this process, when your body is in this phase of resistance, you're probably in this dragging, hitting the wall somewhere phase. You might start having symptoms of feeling tired, symptoms of feeling like forgetting fatigue, start gaining weight in places that you don't want to, developing allergies, being more achy and sore and stiff, not being able to sleep well. Well, depending on which phase of adrenal, this general adaptive syndrome you're in, is how you want to go about managing it. And at the core of all this is anything you can do to reduce your stress or have an ability to handle it better is going to allow you to move back in the cycle where you get back in that state of ease. Ultimately, that state of ease. Now, what you'll see below here is where I've written some of what happens when your body goes in a state of, that alarm phase. Your body pumps out cortisol, and when that happens long periods of time, it can develop into leaky gut syndrome, because cortisol long term is going to cause the issue in the gut, which turn into allergies and sensitivities, and eventually a lot of inflammation in the body. So what you want to do is you want to bring this cycle back to here, where you get the body in a state of ease, and that's physically and emotionally. If we can get the body back in a state of ease, then we have to say, okay, well, depending on what phase you're in, if you're exhausted, well, you have to work on rebuilding that. what that might look like, especially when somebody comes into our office. We use what's called the 6 steps to wellness, where we're really looking at the cause of the problem, addressing what the cause of the problem is, and then giving people the ability to actually start repairing their systems. So the foundation, we want to reset the adrenal gland, what that looks like depending on which phase you're in. So if somebody's in this beginning phase is here, well, they're still maybe in this dragging hanging wall, but they still have higher levels of cortisol. Well, typically those individuals that just they have a hard time sleeping, can't fall asleep, they're not repairing well, it just this constant state of insomnia, and a lot of times you'll see that through perimenopause as well. In those situations, we want to support the adrenal gland, but we also need to do things to help the adrenal glands calm down at night. So we may use things to reduce that cortisol in the evening. Now, if somebody's in this burnout, exhausted phase, we're going to have to spend a lot more time giving the adrenal gland nutrients to help repair them. Now, that's the first phase with individuals, is finding out what it is that depletes their systems, trying to plug the holes where we can, and start rebuilding the adrenal glands and then the organ tissues and systems that are struggling. Now, the longer somebody's in this adrenal gland phase, or really this exhausted phase or degenerative adaptive syndrome phase, we start having other depletions in other systems and other organs. And you might see that through lab work. That's one of the things we use. We might see that through forms of acupuncture testing or applied kinesiology testing. We'll find to identify which organs, glands, or systems are also struggling. So we want to first reset the adrenals. Now, why do we do that? Because if somebody's in this constant state of stress, and they're always feeling like they're in that adaptive phase, they're not going to be in a healing phase. It's kind of like you come home from work and you're super tired, and then you're like, well, I really need to clean the closet, I really need to clean the house, I really need to do all these things, and you have nothing left to give. So your body will tend to make you tired, so you don't actually burn yourself out more. So we have to reset that adrenal adaptation syndrome first. As we do that, then we identify the organ, glands, and systems that need that support them, while we then work on rebuilding them and look at identifying the ways in which your body's handling stress. And let's say that's physical problems. If you have some physical problems that impacting how your body's healing, let's say you've had some whiplash injuries or different injuries, and you have a lot of aches and pains, and it's affecting your ability to sleep or to exercise. Well, we're going to get that straightened out so that you can actually go out and perform the task you can. Just normal, just day-to-day repetitive stress causes muscle tightness and soreness and restricted range of motion. And if that's the case, you're not going to be as relaxed as calm as you could, so you're not going to repair as fast as you could. So chiropractically, we want to mobilize that and make sure the body's moving like it's supposed to. And then also identify the things that you're doing that are constantly depleting your system. And that can be dietary. There's a lot of things that we're eating, fake foods, processed foods, sugars, that are actually depleting your nutrients. So when you put something in your body, it either is going to move you further down this phase or further this way. So if you give your body nutrients that are good for you, if you get a good sleeping habit, you're going to start repairing and putting energy back into the systems, so your body can first function, second repair. It's very common when I start working with individuals, they'll start feeling a little bit better, and then they'll start doing more, and then they'll feel tired again. So I really want people to understand, like, it's really critical that you reserve 10% of that new energy to help your body, give it the chance to heal, because it takes energy to heal. So we want to make sure we identify the nutrients they need, find a way to decrease their stressors, and then help them learn the right behaviors so their body can go into a repair state. Now, the other thing that we want to do is, for a lot of people, the emotional stress is a big part of this. And so identifying ways to reframe situations, maybe trauma they've had in the past, or currently how they're communicating right now, and find different ways to affect that stress cycle so they're not constantly in that fight or flight state. And then physically and energetically teach them how to go into a calm state. If they're not in a calm state, it's really tough to heal. So I want you to identify where you feel like you're at in this system. I have a questionnaire if you want, happy to send that over to you, where you can, just kind of checklist and see, okay, where am I at in this adrenal, adrenal adaptive system phase? And depending where you're at is how long it's going to take for you to get back where you want to be. Now, I've worked with people for 25 years, and you can repair, help people actually turn their lives around. But you got to pull them out of that stress cycle first, identify which phase they are, support the organ, gland, the systems that need that, and go to work to teach them different behaviors, different skills, different tools to repair the physical and the mental and the emotional, so their body can be in a repair phase. All right, so find out for yourself, number one, where you're at, and if you're feeling some of these things, you're down this road. So to get you to where you're in a repair state, where your body, you're supposed to have stress, go through a stress and come back to the resting state. It's very possible. We need to do it physically, we need to do it emotionally, and we need to do it biochemically. If we do that, you reset the cycle, all the other organs, glands, systems can start doing their job. So not only you're gonna like have more energy to do the things you want, but you're gonna start repairing and rejuvenating those tissues that have been struggling for a really long time, so you can get back to doing the things you love. So if this is helpful, pass this on to friends and family that you think that this might benefit, and find somebody that does the 6 steps to wellness. We train clinicians all over the world to maybe check this finish out. If you don't have somebody, then reach out to us, and we'll find a way to get you some questionnaires and do some online coaching and get you feeling better.